Welcome, everybody. I get the opportunity to interview my amazing husband and photographer, Chris Dickinson. I talk about him a lot in the school and our journey of being self employed and running businesses together. And I thought that this would be a fantastic podcast having you, Chris, on here and talking about images and how images impact our business. So let's just start off with a brief introduction of who you are and what you do and your area of expertise.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. That's it's pretty incredible what you're doing with the school, and then also sharing this knowledge with everybody. So, I think that's pretty
Thanks.
incredible. Who I am? Well, I'm your husband. We have, we've been self-employed for 15 years. What else? Let's see. I am a professional photographer, and that is really how this all came about was when you took the leap and went into self-employment. I came along with it was just kind of I wouldn't say I had the vision or we had the vision that man, Chris is going to be a self-employed photographer. It was at the time just a kind of a revenue add-on where
Mm-hmm.
we would get people in studio back in our old house. We had built kind of a home office studio in our backyard. Really nice, just 15 by 30, and half of it we worked in literally back to back. Your desk was on one side, mine was on the
Yeah.
other, and then we had a shooting area over on the other half of the studio. So at the time when we started out, it was just a revenue, uh, maybe an additional revenue stream
Mm-hmm.
where you get your clients and bring them into the studio and I'll photograph their dogs and them and shoot. We even did some Christmas. Remember those the
Yeah.
Christmas
At
um,
Santa.
setups that we
Yeah.
we'd have a Santa
Yeah.
in studio
Yeah.
and people could come and for a nominal fee get their dogs pictures with Santa Claus and everything.
Yeah.
It was really cool. We really had a lot of fun with that. We made it at when we started out, we you were training. I would follow up with the walk and train.
Mm-hmm.
And just be clear, I'm not a dog trainer. That's not my thing. But what I would do is Joe would lay the foundation for the training, and then like most owners, they just need that consistent follow up. So
Mm-hmm.
I would follow up by doing a quote unquote walk and train where Joe meets with them for their hour intensive session, and then maybe 3 or 4 days later I'll come in and do a walk and train with them, whether it's a something on a leash or just whatever Joe has laid out in the training plan. And during that time, I would take pictures, just cell phone pictures of their dogs. I would do a write up of, we went to Liberty Park and we did a couple of rounds, and that kind of thing, and would
Yeah.
describe not only for Joe, primarily, she needs to make sure that there's cohesiveness in the training plan, and what the, how the dog is behaving, but also kind of a comical relief, I guess, for the owners, that their dog got
Yeah.
out.
They loved your
And I
write ups.
certainly, yeah, I certainly wouldn't. I've never been a clinical writer. It's always been kind of jovial. But so,
Yeah.
anyways, long story short, I would go and do the walk-in trains and then take pictures of the dogs. And during that time, now I do have the professional camera, my big cameras, and we would take the dogs into studio. And it was at this time that I also started working with Pets in the City magazine and was their
Mm-hmm.
primary photographer. And I don't know how many covers, whatever, they would send me out on their assignments. I'd do their
Yeah.
covers. In many cases, Joe would be there with the dogs and things like that, and just help me out in terms of getting the dog posed properly, getting their attention, and that kind of thing. That led both of us, both of our businesses started growing exponentially, and you got your head down, and you're continuing to churn the wheels on your own business, and it got to the point where I couldn't just focus on my business, so I had to spin it off to a DBA, and Joe did the same thing, and so uh, it doesn't mean, I mean, we always work back to back, and even right now, side to side, just looking
Right.
over at one another and, hey, do you
Yeah.
have a second, or can you help me with this, or whatever. But as far as our sole businesses go, Joe started focusing just on the dog training side. And then I spun the photography side off and really went down the Western route after you had, well, that was way back when Thomas came, wanted
Hmm.
a Doberman up on his ranch, and you helped with that, and then he invited me up to, I think, photograph a fall gathering or something
Yeah.
like that. Anyways, the long story short, that's history,
Yep.
and
Yep.
now primarily I am an American Western photographer. I do assignment work for American Quarter Horse Journal. Shoot, I've had 9 covers with them. Assignment work for Cowboys and Indians. Had a couple covers for that magazine. I have worked with, for and with the, all the Western publications that are out there, and that's not saying much, I suppose, because there's not many left out there. But as far as the Western industry goes, my primary focus is ranch life versus rodeo, or performance or something like that, where you're shooting events. I am not necessarily an event photographer as much as I am documenting the ranch life experience. So whether that be calving, weaning, processing, doctoring, branding, you name it, a day in the life of ranch life is where my focus is.
I like
That
that.
was really long winded.
Well, let's jump into being a small business owner, and what do you feel like small business owners misunderstand about your field as a photographer?
Yeah, it's a good question, because you have to turn your hat a different way or put on another hat. Because being a creative and being a photographer is one thing, and I get so much enjoyment out of that. The fulfillment that I get out of photographing, one of my best friends, Hadley, I have photographed him for a long, long time, and the enjoyment that I get photographing him and his family out working together, his mom, his dad, they still ride, and that fulfills me. But then there's the business side of things, and the business side is you have to make a living, you have to pull in money, and I mean, now in this day and age, I mean, just over the last couple of years, this is something that's been so paramount on Joe and I's list, because you can never, as much as you would like to put things on cruise control, you just simply cannot. You have to be out there, putting yourself out there, and maybe for some, putting yourself out there looks like going down Main Street, shaking hands, and giving business cards,
Hmm.
or maybe that's spending a couple $1,000s a month on ads on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, because maybe your main street doesn't exist and you're out in the rural area. In that case, you still need to get yourself out there. Everybody knows this. You can be the best dog trainer or the best photographer in the world, but if nobody knows about you, you're probably not running a business. And for both you and I, it's that it's that risk of every day that, man, I'm not selling an image, or I'm not going out on assignment, or whatever your revenue stream is.
Hmm.
You continually have to be turning those wheels. What do business owners maybe miss about photography?
Maybe what they
Well,
misunderstand about it. I think that from a student's perspective and the work that's turned in, as they're building their businesses. Um, I think that there's maybe some misunderstanding about hiring a photographer. Um, and what do you feel like that is?
Oh, that can go a lot. That can go a lot of
Mm-hmm.
places. There is a number of things that are going on in my head right now, and that really comes down to copyright. There's that
Mm-hmm.
as a photographer, as a business owner. We can talk about that. We can also talk about AI and using AI in the creative world. There's such a division, and I don't think it just exists in the creative world, but AI in general, it is real that there are jobs that are being taken away. But on the other hand, the flip side to that is for a small business owner, being able to use AI to your advantage, where you don't need to put brain power. I use AI to write up photography proposals, but that doesn't mean that I'm not looking them over. That doesn't mean that, oh, I'm just, hey, write me this proposal and then I'm sending it out. You have the duty to review all of the documentation that comes out, and I do. And 9 times out of 10, you're changing it. It has
Mm-hmm.
to match what you're saying. But for things that I don't need to put brain power on, like writing a proposal, that's easy. Just do that, no problem. Look it over. Yep, make some changes there, and send it out to the client. Now, uh, there's a lot of people out there in the creative community that think that photography is going away because AI is here. So if we can generate images that are compelling, that tell our story, then what's the need in hiring a professional photographer? Well, the need is, for me, I can sum that up by saying I don't think there's any amount of AI that will ever take the abuse that a cowboy could take.
Mm-hmm.
You, I can tell AI all day long to come up with an image of a man or a woman on a horse, or just simply put, show me a cowgirl or cowboy at sunset with a mountain range and cows in the foreground, or something like that, and it's going to come back with something totally
Yeah.
ridiculous, something that
Yeah.
wouldn't even come close to making sense. I'm not saying it won't get to that point because I'm certain that it will. It will definitely get to that point. But if you want somebody real out there documenting your lifestyle, you hire a photographer for that. And you get many different price points,
Mm-hmm.
primarily based on experience. I would say number one is I definitely charge much differently now than I did 15
Sure.
years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, 15 years ago, I'm taking jobs for free just for the exposure, just for the experience. But you get a photographer out there to document your lifestyle, whether that be family pictures or perhaps a day in the life of what a dog trainer actually does. And the clients that you meet with, most of the time, I mean, going back to what you and I used to do when we were both on the dog training and photography side, is I would just follow you, and
Mm-hmm.
you're doing a walk and train, and I'm taking pictures of you while
Yeah.
doing a walk and train, and we know that those images are going to be used in marketing. All of our market, even to this day,
Yeah.
you still use images from 10
Yep.
years ago,
Yep.
when we're out, and you want to be able to make those images timeless so
Yeah.
that they can be evergreen, so that you can use these images from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they still are relevant to this day.
Right. Yeah. What do you feel like dog trainer business owners, what do you feel like their biggest mistake is as it relates to photography?
dog training business owners.
Yeah. Yep.
What's
So
what's
me as a dog trainer owning my
uh,
own business, what do you feel like the biggest
hmm.
mistake happens from a photographer's standpoint?
I could break that down into a number of different areas, but I
Mm-hmm.
think I approach this more as a tip, not necessarily what you're doing wrong, but what
Mm-hmm.
you can improve on. And I think what you can improve on, the best camera you have is one in your hand. And I would say 99.9% of us have an iPhone or, you know, what's the other one?
Androids.
Samsung, Android. Thanks. Yeah, I don't even know. Obviously, I'm an Apple user, but you have that phone in your pocket, and it comes with a camera on it. So a couple of things that you can do is give yourself space. So you could even set your phone down and do videos. You know, you walking towards the camera. The selfies are good. You know, of course, no problem. Hey, I'm out with this dog. I've been working with it for X amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself space. Think about the composition because within those images, while it's just fine, like what we see right here on screen, you know, you're right in the middle of the screen, but there's not a lot of room for ad copy. So when you're out there, you know, think about that. Of course, here's me, a day in the life, you know, an hour in the life, whatever. But also think about the composition because if you give yourself a little bit more space, you know, push yourself over here and you have more negative space right here, you could put text there like, hey, call Joe 801 blah 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 for dog training and, you know, behavioral
Mm-hmm.
consulting, that kind of thing.
So what do you feel like a dog trainer should put into place early, even if they feel like they're too small to need it?
Probably the biggest thing would be consistency. You know, people need to know that you're out there. People need to know who you are, and if you can present yourself in a consistent way, as human beings, we love consistency. We do.
Mm-hmm.
Down the line, I don't think there's anybody that would say, "Oh, I just love it when I don't know what to expect." I
Right.
mean, yeah, I
Yep.
think to a certain extent we can all joke about that. Like, I
Yeah.
love to be spontaneous. Yeah, don't we all? But I
Right.
sure
But not
love
really.
going to the bank and dealing with the same person over and
Yeah.
over. And I sure love being able to go to that one page and always get dog training tips on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
consistency. So brand yourself consistently too.
So
I, yeah.
let's talk a little bit about branding consistency and um, you know, I got the privilege of having a photographer at my side and getting some amazing pictures. And but what if I want to hire a photographer as a dog trainer? What are some of the red flags that I should watch out for as I'm kind of starting to brand my business to create, you know, that emotional feel of who I am as a dog trainer, but I need to hire somebody to get a particular lifestyle to images like what do I need to what do I need to look at, what red flags come up if I'm looking for a photographer?
Yeah, there's a number of things to think about. Number one, I think it's great if you can develop a relationship with an up and coming photographer. I've done that for many, many years. Help small business owners out as photographers. I think we get in our own heads that we need to be the next big commercial photographer, and you don't. There are so many small businesses out there that need your help as a photographer,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be dog training, a clothing boutique, a soap store down on Main Street,
Yeah.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small businesses that need your help. And if you can come up with some type of agreement, not everything needs to be tangible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
everything needs to have an invoice sent to it. I'm not saying don't send invoices, but I'm saying that you can develop relationships. That's the number one thing that I would recommend is develop
How
a
would we find those up and coming photographers?
yeah, Facebook is a great place. You can go
Okay.
out to many groups and shoot, I see them all the time on Facebook, these beginner photography groups. And from there, like if you just search those groups,
Uh-huh.
for whatever region that you're in, maybe I don't know, Ogden, Utah, photographers or
Mm-hmm.
beginning photography groups, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Find somebody's style that you like, meaning you like their pictures. Maybe you like kind of the moodier image,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gravitating towards that. Reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to do some trade work. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
we we did a lot.
Yep.
I did a lot of that to start out with
Yep.
the trade work, where Joe has a closet of boots, for
Yeah. I know
doing a
I
lot
pimp
of
out.
trade work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that does a couple things. For the photographer, it gives you experience,
Mm-hmm.
and number two, when you're looking to hire a photographer, I would say this: just because somebody posts an image and it's in focus doesn't mean that that person knows how to get focus all the time. It could
Mm-hmm.
be they just put their camera up and the camera chooses what to focus on,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened to be the thing that they were trying to get focus on.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't mean they know how to get focus, and that's the critical part. Time and time again, people, I hear these stories over and over that, oh, yeah, we loved our photographer, but like half the images are out of focus.
Yeah.
Oh man,
So
wow.
would you say that one, you want to have some kind of written agreement with them as far as pictures being delivered in a timely manner and then
Well, that
also should one maybe hire or do work with several different photographers to get the right feel or the right brand or to make sure that they're like what you're looking for? Or is
I
that
think
wrong?
I think that goes into what to look for when you hire a photographer. In other
Hmm.
words, you know, I want to see your portfolio. Show me the work that you've done.
Hmm.
Get an idea of who it is that you're hiring. And then number two, like you're talking about turnaround time. For me, 2 weeks is an
Hmm.
internal deadline. Every shoot that I do has an internal deadline of 2 weeks. So it's my responsibility to talk to the client that hired me and tell them, this is when I expect to have your images back. In probably 100% of the cases, I get those turned quicker than 2 weeks. But yes, find out when your turnaround time is, and then also find out have the conversation about what you can use these images for. Now,
Mm.
there's buzzwords out there, and people don't know what they mean. So, for example, I'll give you the full res images, but I could line 10 people up. Well, photographers or not, I could do five photographers and five business owners and ask every one of them, what does full res mean? And they're all going to give me a different answer. And I can prove
Hmm.
that over and over because that's what I do in my photography retreats. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the bottom line here is find out when you're going to get your images back. Find out what you can do with those images. In other words, if you had this conversation, you're a business owner, you're going to likely be using those as content, to
Hmm.
feed the social media machine or even feed an ad generator, Google ads, Facebook ads, whatever that is.
Hmm.
Be upfront with the photographer. Tell them how you're going to use the images. That's what I would recommend. Don't leave things in the gray area. So tell them how you expect to use those images. And then number two, tell them that you want them sized appropriately so that if I need to make a print or if I need to advertise on the internet, that I can use that. Now, for me, for well over a decade, I have exported my images in a certain format that it's rare that I ever have to present a full res image. In other words, it's
Hmm.
uncropped, it's unmodified, it's the full res
Yeah.
image. And that works. That's work for all the magazines, for all the commercial work I do. It's just fine. So just make sure that your photographer, whoever you find, knows what your expectations are for those images. And I would say if, for a lot of you, if you're just starting this business out, try and make that intangible relationship work where you're giving something and they're getting something and vice versa. It's that give and take. The things don't have to be equal, but they should be equitable.
Hmm.
Meaning, each one of us are getting out what we need. If I gave you $1,000 worth of photography services, it doesn't mean I need to get $1,000 of dog training services. Maybe you have something else going on. I don't know, but be able to work those relationships.
Is it fair to ask up and coming photographer that, I will, give you full creative whatever to build your portfolio, and you can use those images for your portfolio or for your own marketing purposes. And I'll just be the one in front of the camera for you, and in return, I get those pictures as well.
Sure. Every creative needs a muse. Every one of them.
Okay.
There are photographers out there that they thrive off of event photography, like
Mm-hmm.
rodeos, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't do it for me. I'm
Sure.
not saying I don't like rodeo. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
I don't care for the event work.
Yeah.
I don't. That's not me. It doesn't fill my creative heart. But
Mm-hmm.
there are some photographers that just, man, that is their
They love
thing.
it. Yeah.
And
Okay.
and I'll tell you this, there are photographers out there that absolutely love the dog trials. you
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and not just the dog trials, but like the bite work
Events
and
of, mhm.
the event.
Yeah.
For me now, if I was photographing that, it still wouldn't be the event thing, but the thing that really turns me on with the dog work is like scent work.
Uh-huh.
That kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
man, you see the story there, and
Yeah.
the handler and the dogs like that. Wow, okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
gonna find photographers that love that kind of thing.
So you just
So
have to
maybe if
you just have to say what you are looking for,
yeah,
and wanting, to help build somebody's portfolio for a lot who has a love for
yeah,
dogs, and or the working
yeah,
dog, or whatever that. um and tell me a little bit in general, if I'm building, a content, I don't need somebody taking a picture of me necessarily training a dog. Um, I just need a bunch of dog pictures, right?
hmm
I think
hmm
that there's difference in telling the story and the feel. Um, we have a picture of the two Dobermans, Cassie and Ronan,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
believe Ronan is kissing Cassie, and it just
yeah,
sums up their personality. And that
yeah.
is
We
just an
tied, yeah,
evergreen
yeah,
image,
yeah,
right? And there's so much
yeah,
emotion there that, I used it, I continue to use it in a lot of
yeah,
marketing and everything. So tell me, if I'm new to, like, I need good pictures. One, why do I need good pictures? How will it help my business grow if I have good pictures? And two, how do I, um, how do I know what I want or what I need? I feel like it's almost the job of the photographer to tell me what I need, but why do we need it?
yeah.
I don't
Yes
know.
and no. Yeah, I know where you're going with that, and I would say this. Um, for the dog trainers out there, because that's primarily who's probably going to watch this,
Hmm.
you know more than your client ever will.
Hmm.
You do, and Joe and I talk about this all the time, that a dog fight is a dog fight to us, but you have to remember that a dog fight to a pet owner is trauma. that's going to
Yeah.
be trauma. They're going to have some post-traumatic trauma off of that. They're like, oh my God, my dog, whatever. We just are desensitized to that,
Yeah.
because you've been around so many dogs. And the same thing goes for photography. If you're starting out with a newer photographer, they might not even know.
Mm.
They're exploring their own creativeness. And that's where that muse relationship comes in, where maybe you can work off of one another. You're like, hey, I really wanted to do this with a dog, and they're like, yeah, that sounds great. Sure, I'll cover that. Or, let the photographer have some creative room to breathe as well, where you guys are bouncing ideas off of one another. And yes, why do you need professional photography? Look, everybody
Yeah.
everybody needs that professional approach to putting yourself out there. And you're taking high quality images that have the opportunity to be evergreen. And the
Hmm.
picture that Joe's talking about, Cassie and Ronan, we'll put it up on screen, but I titled it "He's Just Not That Into You," and it was these two dogs. Oh my gosh, they were crazy.
Yeah.
They were crazy in a good way.
Yeah.
They were a lot of fun to work with, and yeah, just they were great dogs.
Yeah.
But what I don't think you will ever come across a dog owner, that says, no, I don't want my dog photographed.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody wants their dog
Yeah.
photographed. So
Yep.
this
Yep.
gives this gives the opportunity to the creative, to the photographer, to go out and photograph the dogs that you're working with. In the beginning, I would say, just play off of each other. Try and meet
Mm.
up once a week and get those images. You're right, Joe, that for as long as I've been doing this, I try and make it the most efficient on myself. And that means that I get the images done, I upload them to a Dropbox folder, and I text you the link to the
Mm.
Dropbox folder. And that goes for my wife. That she's no different than anybody else in that regard, that
Yeah.
everybody gets a Dropbox link to the images that I create. It's not a long-term storage library for people, and I tell them make sure to download them so that you can use them however you see fit. And that's the agreement that I make. And going back to, do you have to have an agreement in place? I don't think so. It's, our attorney would totally disagree with this.
Yeah.
But
And he'll be on our
I've,
podcast soon.
yeah, I have rarely signed formal agreements in these kinds of arrangements,
Hmm.
because the world that I exist in the Western world, those handshakes and the delivering and the showing up mean more than anything else. And your word still means something in the world that I run in.
Do you
So,
feel like it's that way across the board with photographers,
no.
going into it where, I don't know you, and I want to develop a relationship, and I want to provide the content for you to build your portfolio, that maybe it's not a legal binding contract, but you come take pictures, and then you find out that that's not really what you want to take pictures of, and then I never see the images. And then I have nothing in place to say, hey, can you get me the images? We had an agreement, kind of a thing. I think that's,
Yeah, that
do
that
we do
exists
we
out there.
trust? I mean, do we trust, or do we just say, can we just write something up so we both are covered?
You
If
you
you
can.
need
You
me
you
once a week,
absolutely
if
can.
yeah, not
Yeah.
necessarily a contract per se, but just how our relationship is going to be, maybe.
Yeah, you absolutely can come up, with an informal agreement, that you can do that. Um, I have done that in the past, and I'll tell you from my side of things, it almost feels like it puts me in a box. I can
Mm.
play in the sandbox, that's fine. I will do that if I need to, but I find it more refreshing to just say, hey, I'd love to photograph you out training dogs, and
Yeah.
do what you do, because I need to work on my skills. I need to work on getting focus, or I need to work on lighting or something like that, or I have an idea. And that's the best
Hmm.
kind, is when you have that relationship and they go, hey, I have an idea for something. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, here's the
Yeah.
other thing that you can do as a dog trainer with your prospective photographer. You can open them up to your clients. Hey,
Sure.
why don't you come over to my house, or I'm just spitballing here, but why don't you why don't we do a Valentine's session? Why don't we do a
Hmm.
Christmas session? And you know what? The photographer gets paid for that. You could
Yeah.
even you could even do an agreement where we split the profits 50-50, because it'd be a great idea for the trainer to be there to help with the dog posing and things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
For the photographer, it'll take a lot less work on the photographer side of things if a trainer is there working the dog,
Yeah.
because then you're just in the moment, and if I say to Joe, hey, can you get her head to the left just a little bit? Oh my gosh, you guys, that goes so far. It goes
Yeah.
so far. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
so
a
think
great
about
idea.
that.
Hmm.
Here, we'll do a trade agreement, or whatever that is, whatever that looks like to you.
Yeah.
You can cover me because I'm so cool.
Yep.
No, I'm kidding.
All of our
Um,
students are cool.
they are cool.
Yeah.
Um, you can work on building your skills while I go out and train. You can get pictures of me, and we can
Hmm.
do stuff. But also, here's an opportunity to make some money, and that is bring my clients in with their dogs, and set up a Valentine's session, set up a Christmas session, or
Yeah.
whatever those are, and charge $150, and you both pocket 75. It's a
Hmm.
great deal. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the photographer can make additional money by having people order
Selling extra.
prints,
Hmm.
or maybe they just put their images in a Dropbox for
Yeah.
people to to print on their own. So yeah, there's a wide variety of things that you can do. Heck, you could even do a walk and train add-on, if you will. That
Hmm.
on this walk and train, I'm going to have a photographer with us, and we're going to get your dog out. Get some professional pictures of your dog while it's out doing its thing.
Yeah.
Or take it into a studio, or take it somewhere and just do
Hmm.
a segmented shoot on its own.
Yeah.
Owners, they ate that stuff up
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. How do you feel like having professional photography on your website, on your social media, your business, business cards, your flyers?
Mhm.
How do you feel like that separates you from, having either some kind of stock photo or having AI generated? I mean, how do you feel like that helps you be separate than any other dog trainer?
Well, if it depends maybe on your philosophy on using AI, I think AI is it's an extremely helpful tool, and
Hmm.
that's just what it is. It's a tool. So
Hmm.
you can separate yourself from the pack by saying, I use AI to help me do X and Y, but I don't use AI to do this.
Hmm.
And for you, especially for pictures of you out training, AI is not going to take pictures of you out
Right.
training. Not
Yep.
saying that that isn't a possibility, because I bet it I bet it
It's
is,
on its
but
way, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But the having a photographer out there photographing you doing what you do,
Yeah.
you can't replace that with AI. And the feeling that you get from getting those images of you, hopefully they're flattering of you,
In
or you got
focus
to
and
have a
yeah.
conversation. You got to have
Right,
a hard
right.
conversation with your
Yeah.
photographer.
Yeah.
Um, you, but those are images that you can be proud of.
Yeah.
AI, I wouldn't say at this point that AI gives you that feeling. It's almost like unwrapping a Christmas present. AI can't, AI doesn't give you that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
And when people get their images back and they go, oh, I love that one.
Hmm.
there's been some heck. I used AI to generate my sticker, and I thought that was cool. But
Yeah.
it's not a picture of me, and it's not a picture of me and Joe. And when Joe and I, like, we were in studio a few nights ago doing a cigar shoot,
Yeah.
and and I get to see those images. Man, I love that.
Yeah.
That's not AI.
Yeah.
I guess I could have AI generate an image, but it's like, yeah, no, that's not us.
Yeah.
But man,
Right.
when I get to make those images of us, that's
Yeah.
really cool. Like, I
Yeah.
love that.
What what do you, just a few more questions here. What do you feel like the um maybe the two, three questions that somebody should ask a photographer to know if you're going to connect with them and be able to work with them? Or maybe what should people know about ask you as like if I want to work with Chris, what question should
Okay.
I ask?
First one is, do you like tequila? That's the first one. Now, yeah, that can be like, what do you ask? What
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
do you ask of a photographer? You can ask, of course, how long you've been doing this. But if you're getting somebody that's new at this, you
Hmm.
kind of already know the answer to that.
Hmm.
But more importantly, what does it mean to you? What does photography mean to you?
Mm.
And maybe even number two, what do you get out of it?
Mm.
And the final one, probably the best one of this bunch, is, why do you do what you do? What is it about the creative pursuit here that turns you on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Creatively speaking, what do you get out of making these images?
Those are good.
Describe that.
Yeah, that's good. So there's a lot of
It's
emotion
not,
there.
who cares what kind of manufacturer you use, Canon,
Hmm.
Nikon, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. they
Yeah.
all they all produce amazing images. They truly do. You
Yeah.
can never look at an image and go, oh, that was a Canon. No, it doesn't exist. But it's not the tools. It's the heart behind it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I will tell you this, that while I don't sit here and bang on equipment, because I use crappy equipment. We all go through this phase, and I can
Hmm.
tell you that it wouldn't be a bad question to ask what kind of equipment they use, but if you don't understand that side of things, then it's
Yeah.
going to do you no good.
Yeah.
So if you say, "Oh, what kind of equipment do you use?" "Oh, I use Canon." "Oh, my uncle used Canon." It's
Yeah.
To me, it's an irrelevant
Right.
conversation. It's a waste
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah.
Unless you're speaking the same language. It's like Joe asking me dog training psychology question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just stop pooping on the floor.
Right.
Like,
Right.
not why are you pooping on the
Yep.
floor? Stop
Yep.
pooping on the floor.
I have three more questions for you. And one is, how would you fix a dog from barking?
How would I fix a dog from barking? Um, I usually just say, "Shut up, shut up."
There you go.
I
There's a non-professional trainer
Yeah.
answering a question. No, I think it's
I
fun to answer those, ask, dog related questions to non-dog trainers. It's good for us to
I
hear.
usually, honestly, um, look, you guys can beat me up here, but when a dog is barking, I'll usually bang on the fence and say, "Shut up." And what I'm trying to do there is interrupt. That's it. I'm just trying to interrupt, and maybe 50% of the time that works.
Great answer. Great answer. What mindset shift do you feel entrepreneurs need to have to grow?
Uh, love what you do and let it kill you. Yeah, what mindset shift for me with photography? Boy, it's not the love of photography that that makes me a business owner. It's the love for closing a deal, for being able to get a proposal approved. After that, that's a completely separate thing from
Mm-hmm.
photography.
Mm-hmm.
Being a business owner, you have to, flip that hat backwards or put on your small business hat and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
The homeless person out there on the corner, they know that very well. That they are putting themselves out there. They're putting a sign up. They're marketing, whatever it is. Give me drugs, give me money, give me beer, God bless, whatever that is. They're getting their message out there. And I'd even go farther and say that the strategy is putting yourself in a location that gets a high volume of traffic.
Nice. Nice. And the last question, what does lead the pack mean to you in your profession?
I'm going to finish on that last question about the panhandlers, and this is what I tell photographers too. If they can do it, why can't you? And that goes for the dog trainers too. If they can get themselves out there and they can make whatever, a couple $100s, few $100s a day by
Yeah.
panhandling, why can't you get your butts out there and and get your message out there?
Yeah.
If they can do it, why can't you? And that goes
Yeah.
for photography too. Sorry, Joe. Third
No, you're
question.
good. You're good. What does lead the pack mean to you in your profession?
Uh, for me, it means putting blinders on, because there's a lot of creative noise out there, and I have to put blinders on. And blinders for me means things like the mute button on social media, being able to mute people, because I don't want them in my creativity.
Hmm.
I don't want contamination into my own creativity through somebody else's account. It doesn't mean I don't like them. It doesn't mean that that kind of thing. It just means
Hmm.
I want to protect my own creative space, without being distracted by something else. So leading the pack is staying focused on what I'm doing, staying true to who I am in the industry. That I've built a great reputation in the Western world. I've gone out to some of the largest ranches, ridden alongside these, the men and women that work these ranches, and I've had the opportunity to ride on some of the best horses out there, in my opinion. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I had a terrible reputation. So you protect your reputation as every small business owner. This is all we have. We have our
Hmm.
reputations to ride on. And if you're confrontational, if you're a jerk out on assignment, and I'm speaking for me, if I'm a jerk out on assignment and that gets back to the people that hired me, I'm not going to go out on assignment again.
Yeah.
And that's just the simple truth of it. So I don't work for these magazines. Yes, I work freelance for them, but make no mistake that I am representing that brand when I'm out on behalf of them.
Hmm.
So same thing goes for any small business owner. It's our reputations that we ride on, and that's it. And if you're going to be polarizing out in the industry, it can turn a lot of people off, and it can devastate a small business. Joe and I, man alive, we've had some employees, and when they check out,
Yeah.
the second they check out, they can show up for 2 weeks, and that they checked out 2 weeks earlier,
Yeah.
and then you spend another month of damage control because they didn't show up to lessons, because they weren't engaged, and now as a small business owner, this is your living, and you have to do damage control. So not only, is it the invested time into what they've done, it's all the other stuff too. So
Hmm.
yeah, leading the pack, put your blinders on, stay focused on what you're doing, and do good in the industry. That's that's what I try and do in the photography world, and that also looks like every Tuesday for 10 years I've done tutorial Tuesdays on
Yeah.
Instagram. You can
Yeah.
ask me any question you want, business, lighting, exposure,
Dog
whatever,
training.
and I'll answer it for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's yeah.
So, Chris, tell us how we can find you, and also, is are you available to, I guess we should say, ask Chris on Tutorial Tuesday if you have photography questions. But how
Yeah,
can we find you? How can we connect with you?
yep. On Instagram, it's cdphotog, so CDPHOTOG, and Facebook, I think it's chris-dickinson-photography. Those would be the easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Mm,
Website cdphotog.com, just like Instagram, or just get a hold of me through Joe.
sounds perfect. Any last advice you would give an up and coming dog trainer and business owner?
Yep. Um, Stop thinking about it as a hobby. As soon as you stop thinking about your business as a hobby, like, oh, it'll just be something maybe in 5 years, start thinking about it as an actual business. And once you make that shift in your mind, your actions will support that, and so will your invoices.
I love it. Thanks, Chris, for being on and sharing your wisdom and finding the importance of photography because I think that it's been a big piece of our businesses is having real emotional good photography. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on, and here's to another 15 years.
Cheers.
Huh? Cheers.
If today's conversation raised your standard, the next step is clear. At Western States Canine College, we train professional dog trainers through structured education, mentorship, and real world application. If you are serious about building confidence and authority in this industry, visit westernstatescaninecollege.com. This field needs stronger leadership. Let's lead the pack.